A very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to session number 6 of ICF Travel Series Break Free. And we are happy to have Ritu Goel from Pune with us today. And she is going to take us on a very exciting journey. And I hope you all will enjoy it. Over to you, Ritu.
Thank you, Vivek. Uh, I'll just request everyone to mute
Can I
themselves.
send you the link again?
Yeah, I would request the participants if they can switch on their video.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. Okay, can I begin?
Yes, Ritu, you
Please
can.
do.
Okay, great.
Please begin. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So my name is Ritu and I run a travel company from Pune. Just one moment. I think there's a little bit of an issue with this, with my screen here. I'll just sort that out. Just one moment. I think I'm not getting a proper view of the participants. It's not showing me so it's just me and a blank screen at this moment. But I think, okay, I'll just continue because for some reason, I'm not able to enable it here. Not a problem. So thank you so much for having me. Um, my name is Ritu. I run a travel company from Pune. My company is very young. It's turning 4 in January of next year. And but I'm kind of skipping this year completely. I'm kind of just going to tell everybody that my company is just 3 years old because this year has been a sort of an aberration for the travel business. So we are based out of Pune, and we offer highly customized, specialized, and personalized holidays. Holiday packages is our mainstay, but we also do a little bit of guided trips, which is basically, for example, if you were to visit Varanasi and you want a guide to take you around and show you some of the hidden places in Varanasi, we kind of arrange that as well. So that is something that we started very recently, and we do it only for some particular cities. Especially in Kerala, we have a very fabulous day trip that we offer in Cochin, which also includes a Syrian Christian lunch, a sit-down lunch. So um, the ethos of the company initially itself was that I wanted to offer a very different kinds of holidays, and it started off with that, and we're thankfully able to continue doing that. So without much ado, I will start with my presentation. I created just a couple of slides to anchor what I'm going to talk about so that it becomes easier to kind of understand what I'm saying, but not much of reading to be done. So I'll just share my screen and I will start the sharing. Just one moment. Yep. So yeah. So this was basically what I wanted to start speaking with. Sometimes you need to journey outwards to journey inwards. So this is actually kind of like an original quote. I haven't picked it from anywhere. And this has actually been my travel journey in all, to sum it up. Uh, Being able to travel to places and being able to explore, being able to uncover layers of places and the people living there to understand about their lives, and all of that has helped me in turn also, be able to follow my own journey as an individual. So I'll start with my first slide, which is one sec. It says slide 2, but yeah, okay. The present is a good place to start. So in the here and now, I'll just give a quick update, wrap up kind of thing on where Ease India Travel, my young company of 4 years, stands today. You may all be aware that the pandemic has hit the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry really hard, and everyone in this industry is struggling. We've seen almost 10 months of absolutely no business, and it's very understandable that people are still fearful, although things have opened up quite a bit. People are still fearful of traveling, people are still scared to go out there and explore. And uh, I've done a fair bit of traveling in the last about 7 weeks, and I know that things are not going to be the same as they were before. So even though, the business part of me wants to kind of just, hope and pray that people start traveling again, there's also the other part of me which knows that it's best not to push, and people do need to take their own time to start traveling again. So that's where we stand as of today. As I mentioned, that I started the company in 2017 of January, and the last 10 months have been exceptionally hard for us. But I'm an optimist, and I think that becoming an entrepreneur, the I think the automatic side effect, I would say, is optimism, because you cannot survive, especially in a competitive industry like travel, unless you are highly optimistic. So that's where we stand today. And I'm very grateful to ICF for having given me this opportunity, because it's after a very long time I'm going to talk about, my journey as a traveler and the company itself. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. Um, Next, I just want to quickly touch upon what has worked for Ease India Travel. So, the way I travel is very inherently connected to what I do in terms of what I offer to people who want to travel. And that is, my style of traveling, which I'll come to later. But to start with, what has worked for Ease India Travel, the company is, like I said, about 4 years old, but we've done fairly well for ourselves, considering that we are in a niche that offers customized holiday packages, which means that, I am the one who kind of understands the needs of the person who wants to travel, and we don't sell off the shelf kind of holidays. We customize each and every one to suit the needs of the people who are traveling. So this could be a group of friends, it could be a family. Families could also include, the elderly parents, the middle aged people with, young teenage children or even younger children. And we kind of custom create activities for each person in the family, and so that they don't feel that the holiday was not for them, and they don't feel left behind. So what's worked for us inherently is that I understand that holidays are very precious to people. People's, save money for them. They're also a bonding time for families. It's also a time to let your hair down, to relax, to get away from the stress of everything. So for me, the way I approach a holiday that I offer to my guest is, I tell them that I completely understand how essential and crucial this little break is for you, and I'm going to do my best to make it work for you, and to make sure that, it's a source of happy memories. So when you look back and you say, hey, when we took that holiday, we had a really great time, and you were able to create some lovely memories to keep going back to. So I inherently work with a lot of families. In fact, most of my client base consists of families. Some young entrepreneurs, startup owners, mostly HNIs and all of that. The reason is that because I'm in a premium segment, I charge premium cost. I'm quite unapologetic about it as well. And my clients are willing to pay that little extra to get what they get from us, which is in terms of experiences. And why I am able to offer experiences which are different from, say, other people in the travel industry, you could name anyone, and I would say we are different from them, is because each and every trip that I customize is based on my personal travels. And uh, I do not offer holidays to places that I have not explored at least twice, and done so with the perspective of my guests coming and staying in those destinations or coming and exploring those destinations. So what's worked for Ease India Travel inherently is that I haven't been selling holidays just for the sake of building revenue or to please or satisfy people. I've been selling holidays that I know will work for the people who are going there, that they will get something unique out of it, that there will be a takeaway from that holiday. It need not be a learning because it's not a school excursion, but it needs to mean something to you. And a lot of times, as travelers, we realize that we can't kind of dissociate the beauty of travel, that is the landscape and all of that, from the people who live in those places, and the way those people are, the way their lives are. We kind of we can't dissociate, and that connection is what I seek to help my guests forge. They should be able to go to a place, and they should be able to understand and explore and come away with not just be enamored by the beauty of the place, but also by what the place inherently is and what makes it what it is. So my inherent outlook is that a place is not just beautiful because of its landscape. And I'm a big believer of wanting to explore places for its local experience, and bring that to the table for my guests. So what I do in my company and how I am as a traveler are both very, very deeply connected. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. Um, Another perspective to this is that in this day and age, gone are those days actually, when you could just open a shutter and open a shop and sit and sell holiday packages. With the burst of information on the internet, there is a very discerning clientele out there. There is that person who has all the information on their fingertips, and they don't want to be given the run of the mill stuff that they can pick off the internet and plan the things themselves, and they don't need someone like me. So I'm very mindful of the fact that what I need to offer them is something very unique. It needs to be unique. It needs to be something that they may have seen a video on the internet, or they may have heard about it, but they cannot do it themselves, and therefore they need the assistance of someone like me, and I'm more than happy to assist. And that's really also been one of the baselines of the company, and how we've luckily made it work for us. That with the overload of information out there, what I do has to be unique, has to be appealing, has to be able to give something completely different. And in a lot of destinations that we offer, I do tell my guests that the activities I offer you here are not there on the internet, because we are a little we kind of like hold on to our experiences, and we kind of only offer them to our guests, and we don't really even market them. There are a host of such experiences in not all of our destinations, but some of our destinations. So that's what's worked for Ease India Travel, and like I said, it is inherently connected to how I travel. So how I travel is, to put it mildly, I'm a sucker for local experiences, and I will do anything to be completely local. Which also means that I do a fair bit of backpacking, solo traveling. I do a fair bit of mingling with the locals. I'm very unafraid when it comes to mingling with the locals, whether I can speak their language or not. Uh, if I cannot speak their language, I hire a guide. If, as far as possible, I make it a point to be able to immerse myself in that local experience, so that I'm able to offer that to my guests in a maybe in a packaged manner, or in some way where they can get an insight, the insight that I'm getting when I'm traveling. So a big part of course, my travel is also chronicling the way I travel. And I nowadays, because content is king, I do a fair bit of videos as well. But there was a time when it was only, me in my diary. I would jot things down, and I would also take some photographs. So through a set of photographs, in the next slide, I will just briefly, quickly tell you about, the kind of crazy experiences I've had when I travel. And it's only been possible because I'm open to the very, to, I'm just basically open to experiences. And I really don't mind being, um, you know, um, Actually, I shouldn't say more. You should just have a look at the next couple of photographs. So one of the places that we offer holidays to is Bhutan, and my love affair with Bhutan started in 2012, and I've been there several times in the last 8 odd years. Of course, this year has been, like I said, an aberration. So this is a photograph of me standing with the head monk of one of the oldest monasteries in Bhutan, and uh, this was I was with a group of guests, and one of the craziest things happened with me. So what you can see me wearing is the Bhutan's national dress for women. It's called the kira. Now, if you see the kira, the green color part, the wraparound skirt is actually just a wraparound, and it is tied with a belt at the waist. So I was going into the temple with my guests, and the next thing I know, after we went to the temple, we went inside the monastery and we came out and everything. My kira was coming apart. Now, thankfully for me, because it was so cold in Bhutan, I was wearing leggings under my kira. So I wasn't, that scared. But of course, it's embarrassing. I mean, I'm out here in the open and. So a friend of mine who was also on the trip with me, who's also a guest. I mean, she was a guest and now she's become a friend. And she tried to help me, tuck the kira in to put it kind of like together. And suddenly out of nowhere comes this monk, and he started talking to me in Hindi, and he started to help me wear the kira again. And this is a photograph taken by my guide. So you can see how embarrassed I would have been. At the moment, I was very embarrassed, but this was like one of those kinds of crazy experiences that I've had. So this is just an insight into the kind of experiences I have. And again, this is him trying to tuck it in and help me, and then after all that, we took the photograph on the left, and after he helped me, I got to know that he's the head monk of this monastery. And uh, almost everyone I have met after that, on all my subsequent trips to Bhutan, no one has ever seen him again. He lives mostly in absolute obscurity in the mountains. He's always meditating, and it's very rarely that people get the chance to interact with him. And I was really lucky to be able to do that. This photograph is from Wayanad. So when I first visited Wayanad in Kerala, I thought I'm going to see a place that is, very one of the hill stations of Kerala and all of that. But to my surprise, and thankfully, all thanks to the person that I was interacting with locally, I was able to understand that Wayanad has a very strong tribal culture. And later on, I'll also show you a video of one of the people I met there. But this is he is a doctor. He's an Ayurvedic doctor, and he basically understands your health issues by simply putting his fingers on your pulse and reading your pulse. And the most interesting part is he doesn't have the first half of his index finger, and he still reads the pulse correctly, and he was able to tell me in like 2 minutes flat what the problem with me was. I mean, what were my health issues, and that it was like that quick. So Wayanad is another place which is very interesting and very intriguing for its tribal culture, which not many people know about. This is Bastar, one of my favorite places in India. I think there is so much of richness of culture, so much attachment to Mother Earth, to nature. You can't find this anywhere else, I think, in India as of now. Very pristine, very untouched. Again, this was a photograph that was clicked in a village that even today does not have electricity. This village is tucked deep inside the forest, and these people live off the land. They do banana cultivations, and I got to spend a night in this village thanks to my guide, who was able to offer me this local experience, because the moment I spoke to him, he understood that this is what I wanted. I did not want to visit the city or to see monuments, but I wanted this. I wanted to stay with the villagers and have the whole tribal experience. And he was very happy to show this to me. So the next couple of pictures are again about Bastar. This is again the same village where I was at, and they don't have running water. So they come down to the stream to wash their clothes and their utensils. A couple of months after I visited Bastar, I was approached by the guide, and he said that he wanted to install a water pump on top of this hill where people come, where the village is located, because all the pregnant women were finding it very difficult to come down and pick water. And thanks to the benevolence of so many of my friends and even relatives, I was able to send about 50,000 rupees to him. And the pump has since been installed, and it's a great boon for menstruating women as well as pregnant women. They don't have to come down to the stream anymore. This is a very unique place in Bastar. It's actually in Chhattisgarh, not exactly Bastar district. It's out of Bastar district, but it's a bridge on the river Indravati, and what you see behind you, the mountains, is a place called Abhujmar. Abhujmar is apparently a Naxal stronghold even today, and civilians, even the paramilitary forces, do not cross this bridge to go to the other side because it's an Naxalian stronghold. So coming to this part of Chhattisgarh was very, very exciting. It was adventurous, it was scary, and it was like a blend of everything, because I knew that beyond this is, sort of a no man's land, and this is my own country, but there are places that I can't visit, and it was just bizarre and crazy. It was unimaginable, actually. This is a photograph from Kinnaur district in Himachal Pradesh. Again, I'm a big lover of road trips. And if you can read the caption on the board, it says you are traveling on one of the world's most treacherous roads. And it surely is, because landslides are very common on this road and on this highway. And I've gotten stuck in a landslide once, actually twice, once overnight, and once we had to kind of turn back and go back, trace ourselves back, because we could not cross over to the other side because of a landslide. And again, when you visit these parts, you meet all people who are still living in rural communities. They have those kinds of value systems. This region is also very famous for its apple orchards. And there have been times, when I've given a lift to someone, to a local woman, and she can't speak a word of Hindi, I can't speak a word of her language, but she communicates by offering me an apple or two as thank you for giving me a ride. And that's really inherently the beauty of India. We don't need a language to communicate. This is again in Kinnaur district. This is a far-flung, hidden, absolutely unknown village called Leo. And this part of Himachal Pradesh has a lot of Tibetan influence, and you can see that in the Tibetan flags. And this is again very famous for its apples. Of course, this was the month of October when the harvest was over, so you can see the trees are all bare. But again, another hidden part. This is another hidden village. It's called Ropa. Again, it's in a part of Kinnaur which very famous for its apples, but nobody really goes all the way to Ropa. This is the last village on this part of India, and beyond this is Tibet. This is a photograph from Andaman Islands, and again, going to Andaman Islands was an absolute feast. It was an absolute treat. It was an absolute treat. Because the Andaman Islands are so different from the rest of India, the way their lives are, the way they conduct themselves, they're cut off from the mainland, and they have to get everything from the mainland. And it's really an education to go to the Andaman Islands and speak to the locals there. So this is on an island called Baratang, which is very famous for its lime caves. And I was able to speak to the ladies out there who were making lime juice and selling. And it was crazy. These women, they live in these little villages, and they send their young children away to the nearest town to get an education. The children live with a relative, or they live in a hostel. It was really scary for me to hear their stories in a way, because these girls, I mean, they're little girls, and I was fearful for their safety. But this area is, even though it's so touristy and so popular amongst the tourists of the Andaman Islands, it barely has any development. It doesn't even have electricity, and they make do with the solar panels, and that's how they get electricity in their homes. I was lucky, very blessed to have been able to visit the Kumbh Mela in 2019 in Allahabad. And again, thanks to my local host, I was able to meet up with some of these Naga sadhus and really get to spend some time with them and talk to them. This Naga sadhu apparently hadn't, at the point, sat for 2 years. So I don't know why he was doing it, because he was also very uncommunicative. But he hadn't sat for 2 years, so that was like his sadhana was not sitting for 2 years. So again, it's just like an insight into what the things that people do. So this the video I'm going to show you is of a soothsayer, like I said, from Wayanad, the tribal district of Kerala. And when I was introduced to him by my host, he kind of asked me, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, my company was, I had just started the company 2 months ago, and I was like, okay, tell me whether my company will do well. So he kind of threw some rice here and there, and he said, your company is not going to do very well unless I do a puja. So I kind of played along, and I said, okay, do the puja. So he asked us to get coconuts and a couple of other things, as well as liquor bottles, and this is the kind of puja he did.
ഈ സ്ഥാപനത്തിന്റെ പേരുണ്ട് ഇവരുടെ സ്ഥാപനത്തിന്റെ പേരുണ്ട് ഇവരുടെ സ്ത്രീയുടെ പേര് സ്ഥാപനം ഇത് വേറെ വേറെ സ്ഥാപനമാണ്
So you can see he was just doing, I don't know what he was doing, but and then after this he threw the coconuts behind him and the coconuts broke open, and then he said, it's okay, take this home and everything's going to be fine. And then after we left, apparently he drank the liquor. So this is what we experienced there. I'll take you through the next one, which is a very cute video. This is a video from Bastar.
टूथब्रश है इसके लिए और साथ में फिर वो जैसा कोई रूट्स ले तो उसको भी ले आया अपना फूड ले आया अपना
टूर बाटे दारू नहीं खाए रुक नहीं कूट नहीं देने ये मन
मंच बाट कहीं नहीं है कुछ नहीं है सब सरला लोग मन काट सर कोई तो नहीं है
ओए तो
So this lady in the video, her name is Budri. She lives in a tiny village in just off Jagdalpur, which is a bustling town. And it was so surprising for me to see the lack of any kind of development in this village. They don't have electricity, they don't have running drinking tap water, and they still are so connected to the earth that this is how they live. So these bowls that she's making out of the leaves is basically what they use to eat food every day. And after they've eaten food in it, they just throw those leaves to the cattle. These are edible leaves. And I was told by my guide that it just negates the use of using fresh water to wash your plates and your bowls or whatever. So they just use utensils for cooking, but they eat out of this. They even drink out of these bowls of made of leaves. So I mean, they are so connected to the earth even today that this is how they live. And like I said, the surprising part is they were so close to Jagdalpur, which is a big bustling town in Chhattisgarh.
टूथब्रश है इसके लिए और
and this is also a video from Bastar. So one of the things that I always, one of the pitches I use to sell Bastar, or rather promote Bastar is, there's a lot we don't understand about rural areas, and we don't understand about rural India, tribal India. But for me, more than the people who live in these villages, more than the adults, it's the children that I feel most for. The children you'll see in this video are kids who study in a nearby village school, and the only reason they go there is because they get a midday meal for free. None of these children or even their parents own a mobile phone when we're talking about this was shot in 2018, but according to my guide, who I'm still in touch with, this village has remained the same. So even if we say 2019, 2020, this is a village where, again, very close to Jagdalpur, where children and even their parents do not own a mobile phone. Now, these kids go to school, like I said, just for the midday meal. But they took, so my guide, his name was Shakil Bhai. Shakil Bhai gave the children, this boy, his phone to play a game. And it took the kid just 2 minutes to understand that game. These are children who have no access to any kind of technology, but their adaptation of technology can be so quick, and it's only about us giving them an opportunity. And that is something which I find, where I feel that as irresponsible travelers, we can contribute, we can do something for them. So have a look at this video. The next video is actually a very heartwarming video. So one of the ways in which I have figured to make local connections is to carry this little portable printer with me. This is a new development. I purchased it about 2 or 3 years ago, and I've used it pretty often. If you once you see the video, I'll explain what happened really. So.
Lagi paling.
Lagi ya. Şimdi de.
Lagi batin doa.
Ya.
Ki batin dosa.
I'm sorry, kiyorum. Vallahi. Sen
Ya. Madam kisara me.
मैं चुनको देखिए दे
Chungu me keda. Wow.
ना दो
He's saying like he took a reward again. Whatever.
I'm sorry,
He's saying like he took a reward from this camera.
So when we tour Bhutan, there are some particular treks that we do, and there is a day hike that we do. And on each of the times that I visited Bhutan and done the day hike, I used to see this elderly gentleman sitting there near this prayer wheel, this little enclosure. And I would always ask my guide about him, and they would say that he lives in a nearby village. He's some 80 plus years old. He himself doesn't know how old he is. He could even be 90 or more. And this one time when I was carrying this portable printer, I took a photograph of him and I printed it out and gave it to him. And he was absolutely overjoyed. And it seems later on, he told my guide that maybe this is the way I came out of my mother as well, the way the photograph came out of the printer. And this was his first ever photograph, like the only one he's ever taken in his life. So I think a large part of the way I travel is also to spread some joy and some happiness. And I figured out some little small ways of doing that. This is again just to kind of like showcase, how my focus is always on the local experience. This is a video that I shot in Himachal Pradesh. This lady is the second in command at a hotel that I stay regularly. And she is a Gaddi, so they are nomads from Himachal Pradesh, and she was weaving a shawl, and I decided to ask her about the shawl. It's a slightly longish video, so I'll stop it midway.
आपको ये बचपन में सिखाते हैं सुमन? नहीं, बहुत कम बना था हमारे गांव में। मतलब जो हमारे गांव के में वो ये वाला नहीं होता है। अच्छा, इसको खट्टी बोलते हैं हम लोग हमारी भाषा में। हाँ। और हमारे गांव में होता है राच। उसमें इतना फ्लैट नहीं होता है,
अच्छा
और इतना बड़ा नहीं होता है,
अच्छा
और ये वाला सिस्टम नहीं होता है।
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा
ऐसे होता है सेम सिमिलर चार,
हाँ।
पर वो होता है ये जो आयरन है ना, यहाँ पे रस्सी का बना होता है वो वाला, उसका भरने का स्टाइल उंगली के साथ होता है, और इसको हम क्रोशे जैसे उसके साथ भरते हैं। और हमारे गांव में जो होता है उंगली में ऐसे लपेट में धागे फिर ऐसे घुसाना। तो दूसरा सिस्टम होता है, मुझे नहीं, मेरे पापा को आता है।
अच्छा
वो मेरे पापा का बिल्कुल था।
तो ये आपने यहाँ के सीखा?
ये हमारे गांव में मेरी दीदी है ना,
हाँ
उन्होंने पता नहीं किसी और से सीखा होगा, फिर उनसे मैंने सीखा। हमारे गांव में काफी ऐसे 8-10 व्यक्ति तो
बनाते हैं।
So Suman actually makes these shawls apart from working a full-time job. She makes these shawls to earn extra money for her family. They live in a very far-flung village called Bada Bengal, and so far the village doesn't have road connectivity, and it takes about 3 days of traveling by foot, hiking, to reach the village. And they grow rajma for a living, her parents, but she tries to make extra money by selling these shawls. So it was important for me to, of course, again, like I said, creating content is important as a business owner, but also, to be able to tell people that, it's just not the whole act of weaving. It's also the inherent, the kind of thought process that goes into it, and what she's looking forward to, what she hopes it brings to her. It also gives us an insight into, when I spoke to her about her hopes for the future and all of that. This is the last video. Yeah, this is the second last video. I'll quickly wrap this up. This is, again, I was sitting in a homestay in a very remote part of Bhutan. And I was talking to, it was a very cold afternoon, and I decided not to sleep. Instead, I was with a guest, but I decided to spend the time in the kitchen, which is where all the activity in Bhutanese household happens, with my guide. And I started talking to the grandmother of the family. And of course, she doesn't speak a word of Hindi or English, and she was speaking in her native language, which is called Zonkha. And my guide was happy to translate it for us, for me. What I understood from this interaction is that from the outside, Bhutan seems like such a perfect country, because they have a very strong social welfare system. They have a very strong family system. They are very nationalistic in many ways. They love their monarchy, and it's quite the Shangri-La when you look at it from the outside. But it really wasn't that way, forever. And the grandmother belonged to a generation which was, I think, in the 1940s or 50s, when she was a young girl. And she spoke to me about that time. And that gave me an insight into how life was for them as children. And it's very universal. I think when you also see this video, you'll realize that there are even villages in India or grandmothers in India who would be able to narrate a similar experience. And I think that's something that I thrive on.
They have to go for a labor work in a different administrative purpose and all. And even like she already shared, like Sinthoka song, they went as a labor here. And for this purpose and all, they never used to send their child. And she said like even they used to hide their child when government officials come and check for their children towards school.
Really?
And she's sharing about our aircraft, no? Like before, when she was very young, she used to see like a torch, like a star, no, in the sky. So they just think of this. They don't have idea of this flight or not. Namdu, no, we call it. They don't have idea like this flight and all, plane and all. No, they just thought of this as kind of a star. But now what they see is like people are traveling in this, traveling in this kind of things. This is a big change. She can see. This is how she said.
Very soon, Muta so many. Muta on them really talk the thing I can mum to why Muta on the Muta on this.
So this lady is a sassy grandmother because she criticized the third king, and she said a lot of things about him. And even though she saw me recording her on my phone, and she was completely unperturbed by it. And I think this interaction with her gave me a lot of learning about the Bhutanese way of life and how things were before it actually turned into this, the current Shangri-La that it is known as. This is this is the last video that I'm going to play. This is from a recent trip. Recent in the sense this was taken before the lockdown happened. This was in the second week of March. I was in Tirthan Valley in Himachal Pradesh on a road trip. And I hope you can understand the lingo in this, but I will also explain it later. This was again an eye-opener. I mean, this is 2020 and villages in India are still like this. So this is the last video anyway, so I'll just quickly play it. So I was told that I can just pick up walk inside the village. It's a really cute, small, tiny village. It's amazing that people out here still live like this. Wow, and it's cold. I brought my laptop here, thinking that I would, be able to sit in one corner and just maybe work for a bit. But with this rain and snow, it seems unlikely. So I'm going to leave very soon. Really nice, cute little village. But what a hard life they must be having. It's so cold. And access road, I think, must be blocked for most parts of the winter. I'm panning my camera so you can see. And this little one has decided to give me company. They are mountain dogs. They latch onto you and then they'll follow you. God. I can't really imagine living like this. I'll just go check out that wooden structure. I find that very weird. ये क्या है ये लकड़ी का?
माता की।
ओह, अच्छा।
बैसाख महीने में आती है ये।
अच्छा।
माता की बंडल से।
बंडल से, नीचे से।
हाँ, नीचे क्या बंडल है?
हाँ।
क्या मंदिर है माता का?
अच्छा अच्छा, वहाँ से आती है। अच्छा, साल में एक ही बार बस? बैसाख में?
साल में
एक बार। अच्छा अच्छा, बड़ी ठंडी है।
ठंड है इधर बड़ी भारी ठंडी। आप आए घूमने, मार को तो ठंड लगी।
हाँ, मैं तो बस जा रही हूँ अब।
और कौन है साथ?
कोई भी नहीं, मैं अकेली आई हूँ।
कहाँ तक जाना आपने?
है?
आपने कहाँ तक जाना?
मैं उधर तीर्थन।
तीर्थन मेरी। आई बहू जा रही थी तब बोलती मैं। अच्छा, बहू ने जाना थी नीचे खेड़ी में। नीचे जाना है उन्हें? हाँ, इन्हें जाना थी तब बोलती मैं। और तो नहीं कौन है? अच्छा, बाजार जाना इन्हें। अच्छा, खेड़ी तक जाना, फिर मिलेगी इनको बस। अच्छा, यहाँ बस नहीं आती? यो वो आती कल सवेरे। अच्छा, अब बोलती मैंने कि चल इन्हें पैदल नीचे। ओहो। तो मैं अभी खाना खा के निकलूंगी, चलना है तो चल लीजिए मेरे साथ, गाड़ी है मेरे पास। पूछ लीजिए। हाँ, इन्हें जाना थी नीचे जाना, ट्रेन से जाएंगे बस में। अच्छा अच्छा, पूछ लो आप। हाँ। So basically, this was amazing because after I struck up the conversation with this lady, and what she told me is that her bahu, her daughter-in-law, wanted to go down.
So basically, this village is 17 kilometers up from the valley, and the village is called Sharchi. And her daughter-in-law wanted to go down 17 kilometers and then to another town by bus, because the bus doesn't come to Sharchi until the next morning. And it was very urgent apparently for her to go. So I volunteered and I said, okay, I'll take your daughter-in-law down. As I sat in one of the small cafes having my lunch, this girl turns up there and she says she's the one who's supposed to travel with me in my car 17 kilometers down. And she was heavily pregnant. And you saw what the weather was like. It was raining, there was snow on the way. And like this lady said that if I wouldn't have taken her, this girl would have gone down walking 17 kilometers in this weather and being like this big tummy, like she was almost 8 months pregnant. And after she sat in the car, I asked her, I said, why are you going down? She said, no, I had attended a yoga camp, once, I think last year. I have to go collect the certificate today. So I was like, can't you do it another day when it's bright and sunny? It's so cold and, you see the weather today. She said, no, I have to go today only. And that's really how these people live. They're literally living on the edge, So that with that, I come to an end to the whole, all the videos. And just to say that this is the way I travel, and this is what gives me immense joy and satisfaction, and I take away so much from here. And sometimes when I'm leading groups, it's very rare now, but when I do bring these experiences on the table for people to understand that this is how things are even today in the real India. This one point that I wanted to speak about, which is the slide open right now, it says the only way you can see the beauty from up there is when you do the hard work and get up there. Traveling has actually opened up a lot of doors for me. So when I was a child, I wasn't very athletic or very much into physical activities. But this quotation is actually what hooked me, because I could not see the beauty of a lot of places unless I, bucked up my act and got fit and started climbing. And thanks to that, I hike pretty regularly, and I have now become an avid hiker. In fact, maybe in January mid sometime, I will be undertaking a 6-night, 7-day trek in Uttarakhand, which has been on the cards for a very long time. So this saying actually also fits in with my companies, with the way I run the company, that unless and until you work hard to get there, you can't get the view from up there. So there are no shortcuts to whatever you want to do and achieve. For everything, you have to put in the effort. Another perspective to this is, which I have also learned, which I feel is very crucial in the travel industry today, is people don't buy what you are selling. People buy what you do. And that's really the crux of everything for Ease India Travel. People don't buy holidays from me because I'm selling holidays or I'm marketing holidays. People are buying holidays from me or treks from me. It's because they see me do it. Whether it's social media, whether it's word of mouth marketing, whether it is referral marketing, it's because people know that I do it myself. So that is basically the USP of my company. That what I do is what I market, is what I package, is what I offer. And that gets customers to me, and it keeps them connected to me and the business. So there is this one saying actually has both perspectives. Because if I wasn't into trekking, I would not be able to offer trekking holidays with that kind of understanding and commitment. And it's the same thing with other adventure activities, which is why as a company, I don't offer other adventure activities. I've steered clear of offering some kinds of adventure activities because I know it's not me. Like I can't scuba dive. So I don't offer scuba diving holidays. I've steered clear of that because my perspective is very clear. What I do well, I will offer that. What I cannot do, I'm not going to offer it. And I'm not going to flap my arms to, just to get that revenue in. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not confident about offering something, I will end up shortchanging my client and they'll end up having a bad experience. And for me, customer is king and service is offering them good service is on top of everything else. So there are no shortcuts that I take when it comes to running the business. A quick word about the ethos of Ease India Travel, apart from the fact that we are deeply committed to offering the best service to our clients. One of the things that's very close to my heart, which also sets in tune with what I said earlier about people buying what you do, is are my inherent, I would say, personal um, uh, um, personal affinities I have for inclusion and eco travel. So I'm very committed to inclusion, which is why the company offers holidays to senior citizens, especially senior citizen women. Because in our cultural context, senior citizen women generally get stuck with raising grandchildren and all of that. They barely ever travel without their spouses, and leisure travel is almost unknown for a majority of them. So seniors and senior citizen women, members of the LGBTQ community, we have we are offering special holidays for them in spaces where they would be welcomed without any stigma and any stereotyping. And also holidays for people who have weight issues. So people who are struggling with morbid obesity, they have a certain pace of travel. They will have a certain style of travel. I can't put them in a group of 20 other able-bodied people and tell them, okay, travel like them or do this or do that. It just takes away from the whole experience of traveling, again, because traveling for me is not just getting out on the road and just clicking photographs. It's about growing as a person. And why should anybody be denied that opportunity? And so inclusion is a huge part of what we do, and it is the ethos of our company. Also, eco traveling. I'm a firm believer of eco travel. I haven't consumed bottled water in a very long time because I believe that it's very important to not drink bottled water, not just for the plastic waste that it produces, but also the amount of good water that it takes to produce a liter of bottled water. I'm also a very firm believer of every drop in the ocean. And I do not think that the effort of one person goes in vain. I feel that every single person who can put in any kind of effort, any kind of contribution helps in the larger context. And I'm always trying to eco travel as much as I possibly can. I was on a trip to Arunachal Pradesh recently in the third week of October, and it was a 10-day trip, actually a 12-day trip, and I managed to, for the first time ever, carry all my garbage back. From all those remote places that I visited, I did not leave any garbage in those places, and I brought everything back. It was very difficult to execute it, and I've had some learnings on the way, but I'm deeply committed to wanting to at least do my bit. It's not, there is no magic wand that can change or undo the damage that we've done already to the ecology, but at least we can take these baby steps. And we always encourage our guests also to do. So when they sign up for a holiday, they do get an email from the company with 5 easy ways in which they could possibly reduce their carbon footprint. Again, there is no compulsion because it needs to come from inside. But since I am committed to eco traveling, I always want to at least plant the ideas in their heads. This slide is basically where I wanted to speak about how recently I got a validation for what we do. So as I mentioned, that this has been a very hard year for the travel industry, and especially hard for a startup like ours. We've had no revenue since the February of this month, and things have been very difficult. We've had to shut our office physically. Our staff has left, and now there's just 2 people on the team. And it's been very difficult. The going has been, it has kind of made me look into or garner all the strength that I had inside me to be able to be optimistic and to continue doing what we can do, to continue, very low key marketing, but continue to do that, continue to bring some kind of disruptive post-COVID, holidays, ideas, and offer those to our clients as well. And it has been a very tough time. There was a time where I thought that I may have to shut the company because I wasn't sure where this was headed. But I'm grateful that I was able to quickly brush that idea away because I think, the dedication with which I have built the company up to this level, I wanted to see this through to its logical, path forward. And I did not want to let go of it just yet. And one of the biggest validations we got recently was when I was invited by the Arunachal Pradesh government to be part of a group to conduct a reconnaissance in Arunachal Pradesh for about 9 days, completely hosted by the AP Tourism Board, where they wanted travel companies to come and, check places out in Arunachal Pradesh and also give our recommendations for on how we could help or how the Arunachal Pradesh government could promote Arunachal Pradesh as a sustainable tourism destination. And one of their core models that they were looking at was the Bhutan model, which is a model that I have adopted for my company, which is a high value, low volume tourism. And it was an exceptional eye opener for me to be on this trip because I was the only woman in a group of 7 travel companies that were invited. So this is an invite only event. And I was the only woman as well. And the other 6 companies were not startups. So that was another very big thing for me. I was the only startup as well. The other 6 companies were all companies that they're the stalwarts in the industry that have been around for decades. And when I asked the organizers why I was invited to this event, because, when I put myself against them, I was this anomaly on the trip. And I was told that the reason why I was invited is because what I'm doing in terms of experience travel is possibly the next big thing in travel. And they wanted to get a sense of, my inputs towards the development of Arunachal Pradesh as well. So that was an amazing event for me. I'll also, now that we're speaking about the company, I'll quickly also address the challenges that I feel or that have also been pointed out to me. Sometimes when you're in the system, it's very difficult to have a 360-degree perspective and to have a bird's eye view. But I've been told that, I need to address the challenges as well. And one of the challenges is, of course, scalability. But I'm open to ideas from everybody here who would like to share those with me. The last slide is about, the way I travel. And I just wanted to end this on a very happy note. This is a photograph from my first Bhutan trip in 2012. I was crossing through a very remote village and we had stopped there for lunch. And there was a group of kids who saw the camera in my hand and they were like, they wanted to pose for me and wanted me to take their photographs and everything, which I did. And then we took this group photograph. And I took a lot of individual pictures and I took their address and I promised them that I would send these photographs to them, which I did. I came back to India, I took prints and I sent the photographs back to them with a handwritten note that this is my email address. And if you ever wish to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me here. And I hope you receive the photographs. And I hadn't heard from anyone in the village. This was 2012. I hadn't heard from anybody in the village for 7 years. And in 2019, I got this email. Dear Ritu, greetings from Bhutan. I don't know if you will remember me or not, but we met in my village long time before when you visit my country in 2012, where you and your friends stopped in a place called Nobding. You even sent the photos you took that time. Thus, I came to know your email ID too. I am very much happy that you sent my photos and even a letter all the way from India with lots of difficulties. I hope you are all doing well and my regards to your friends too. As you mentioned in your letter to send you an email after I get the photos, so I am sending you today. Thank you, Kencho Om. So this was again a sort of validation that the way I travel and the way I, what I want to do when I travel, it works. One of my friends dug out a photograph of Kencho Om from the internet and sent it to me, and apparently this is what she looks like today. So this is Kencho Om when she was younger. So that's it from my end, and I'm just going to stop the presentation right now and the screen sharing as well. Apologies because it's become too long a presentation, but yeah, I'm done finally.
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. And we didn't realize how time went by, your storytelling and the experiences and anecdotes that you shared. And you can look at the chat box, all the participants, they've sent you some messages. And
okay.
And any queries the participants have, any questions, they're free to ask.
Hello, Ritu. I'm a senior citizen lady and I'm single.
I'm sorry, you're cracking up. You're cracking up. Can you come closer to the mic? Yeah, now it's better.
Better? Okay.
Yes.
I am a single senior citizen lady who will like to travel with you.
Great.
So we will link up.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I want to tell you that my father is the one who set up the Department of Tourism, Government of India in 1953. Just before I was.
Oh, wow.
I worked in tourism also. And your kind of tourism is my kind of tourism. I believe in homestays. And though I have been to the Waldorf Astoria hotel where Mr. Modi had stayed, I was there as a 5-year-old. But that's not my style. My style is your style. And
good to know. Good to know. Thank you so much. Good to know. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your lovely messages. I'm just reading the chats. Very nice. Thank you so very much. Thank you. If anyone wants to know anything.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, Ritu, kudos to you. And I absolutely love what you do. And I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, wish you all the very best. And I hope I can travel with you sometime. Because I just, exactly like Matt just said, your kind of travel is exactly my kind of travel too.
Thank you.
And I love actually traveling. I had a question about, in the last video, you mentioned that you were by yourself. So how do you manage to curb your fears for your own safety, especially as a woman? Because that's one of my major concerns when I travel alone. Like, it's really sad. You need to be concerned about that because there are such amazing people there. But then at times, I'm never sure whether to, entirely trust them or not. Simply because I'm not sure about the safety factor. So how do you handle that or do you travel alone most of the time is the first question actually.
Yes, Jyoti, I travel alone quite a bit. And I always tell everyone who wants to travel alone that, it's one thing to be idealistic and say that, women should be able to do whatever. But we have to be mindful of our own safety, and safety is always top priority for me. There are a couple of things that I do, especially I don't travel after dark alone, especially if I'm driving. And I make it a point to go end to end. Even if I have to start at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, I make it a point to end my day by 4:35 in the evening. I don't travel after dark alone. I also, that's why for me it's so important to have local connections. I always start with a local connection where I can get deep insights into what's a good time to be out there, what's a good place to stay in. Even hotels are sometimes, small hotels are very unsafe and you can have bad experiences. I've done that. I've changed hotels, like after reaching there, I've realized that, okay, I'm not having a good feeling about this. It's not necessarily that something has happened, but I just get a feeling that I'm not going to be comfortable here, and I quickly change hotels. I'm actually without remorse when I do stuff like this. I don't apologize to the hotel guys or whatever. I just say, you know what, I'm not staying here, I'm going. I think safety is something which is in our own hands, and we have to, one of the things I've always said is, I go with my gut feeling a lot. Even destinations. And over the years, I've realized that Himachal Pradesh is a very nice place to travel in. Even if you are traveling later in the evening, the Himachalis are generally very simple people and very safe people. But I will still not take that risk and still never travel after dark. So, just go that extra
Okay.
mile. And I would say that if you want to really also get the, I would say the courage to do more and more, start with places that you'll be safe in. So, like I can be really sure about Himachal. I've grown up in Kerala, but Kerala I know is not very safe for women after dark. So I will not recommend for anyone to travel in Kerala after dark. But Himachal Pradesh, yes, I'll say, and but not even crossing from Delhi to Himachal. No, Haryana, Chandigarh, no. You have to in Himachal, you can. But it's always better to start with your comfort zone, and that is how I started. So it needed to be in my comfort zone. Like I live in Pune, so from Pune to nearby places, just start with your comfort zone and do small trips first, and then get that confidence. Also, a lot of other things on the road, right? Being able to stop somewhere to have a cup of tea, you have to. It has to be a safe space again, because a lot of things can happen, and if things
Yeah.
have to go wrong, a lot of wrong things can happen. So it's basically it makes you develop a habit of and then exactly where to stop and which dhaba looks decent enough to stop and which doesn't. That way,
Yeah.
yeah. Practice.
Thank you so much. Ritu. And I hope, I don't know if you shared it in your first slides, maybe, but if you have an email ID or something, and if you can share that, that would be
I
great.
haven't. I'll type it here. Yeah. I'll send you my email ID. Yes, that's a good
That would
idea.
be great. Thank you so much, Ritu. And thank you so
Most
much to the
welcome. Thank you
organizers
so much.
also.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So Jyoti, where are you based? Just wanted to ask that.
Sorry. Yeah. Hi. Oops. Sorry. Yes, I'm from Pune. So I was there for
Okay.
Anita's last week's. That was my first webinar, and I'm thoroughly enjoying the series. And I hope someday I'll be able to contribute in some way. So thank you so much, Pune. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jyoti.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Great.
I have a question.
So you have
Yes.
Jyoti and Santhani also. Santhani also is from Pune.
Oh,
I have a
lovely.
question.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yes, please.
I have one question,
Someone
Ritu.
had a question.
And
After
Yes.
that, I'll.
Yes, ma'am.
should I speak?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Ritu, do you have any visitors from out of India, or you're having mostly Indian visitors?
So it is by default that I have gotten into domestic tourism. It was never by design, because for me, again, the idea was to just sell experiences. We've had some foreign clients, but we don't specifically market to either the domestic or the foreign clientele. We just do general marketing about India is a beautiful country, and so many hidden paths to be discovered. So I'm hoping for things to become better in 2021, and when travel.
I have a very, very strong contact who
Mhm.
can help you, and
Okay.
he speaks French, like a Frenchman, and Farsi also.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
And he is in Delhi, and
Okay.
he has more than 40 years of experience in tourism.
Wow, that would be great. Ma'am, if you could get us connected, that would be really great.
Yes,
I've
I
shared
will
my
do that.
number in the chat.
Yes, I will do
If you
that.
could just-
And
yeah.
you will laugh at his name. His name is Suez Akram. Suez like the canal.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I'm noting it down.
yeah, do that. I will send you his number. I will send
Okay.
your number to him. Okay?
Great, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thanks a
You're
lot.
very welcome.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Hi,
Yeah.
hi, Ritu. This is
Hi.
Shayantini.
Hi,
I was
Shantini.
from Pune, and you're doing such a tremendous job. My God,
Thank,
the experiences that you shared were so lovely. And there are
thank,
people uh, who take tourism just for touring purposes. Okay, there's a
yes,
difference between touring and traveling.
yes.
Traveling is an emotion for me, and I absolutely loved how the way, like they said, other people said that your way of traveling is our way of traveling. Definitely it is the same.
Thank you.
I would love to connect with you someday.
and I hope
Thank
to
you.
travel with you in the future. Very soon, I hope that we can travel again the way.
Yeah, yeah. I hope so too. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes,
It will be
thank you
really
so
great.
much Ritu, for
Thank
this
you.
session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Hello, Ritu. Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah. When did you develop this interest of traveling in this manner and going to villages and knowing about the local people? I mean, what made you do that? Or, okay, I'll ask you another question. Is your father in the services?
No, my father's not in the services, but my father was an avid road tripper in the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, I was born and raised in Kerala, and my dad used to put us children in the car like every other weekend, and we used to tour Tamil Nadu and Karnataka extensively. And this way of traveling that I have is sort of imbibed from him, because we would always travel without reservations, because this was in the 70s and the early 80s, when you wouldn't have these online whatever reservations. So dad would just put us in the car, and he'd be like, we're going somewhere, we'll see if we have a flat, we're looking for a place like at 2 o'clock in the night to stay in. We've had some bizarre experiences. We've got stuck with punctured tires, with a car broken down in the rain, and all kinds of crazy things. So a little bit of risk taking has come from him, but more than that, I think this whole thing of being open to experiences has actually come from my parents, because even my mother, she must have been so experimental to take 3 children in the car together, without that era of diapers and whatnot. She braved it all because she herself is an adventurer in some manner. So, but yeah, local experiences. I think it was. In a way, Bhutan made me realize that, because Bhutan is actually the first country I started traveling solo with. And because we are neighbors, there's so much we have in common, and yet we don't. And for me, it's very interesting because I'm a history buff. So for me, it was very interesting to understand where they're coming from and why they are the way they are. And I have been able to figure that out over the years, that, they're a country that's never been colonized. And so they have held on to their cultures and traditions. And, you may call it pagan way of looking at things, but they've held on to it. Whereas we got colonized, and so therefore we got modernized and westernized and, so-called civilized and all of that. And that's where the difference between us is. But there is still that part of India which is refusing to go that way. And I saw a lot of it in Arunachal Pradesh as well. In fact, I'm looking forward to going there again, because when I went the first time, it was a conducted tour, literally. But the next time I'm going to do it my way. And I believe that there are several tribes that, in fact, the CM, during our interaction with the CM, he told me, when I said that I'm a big believer of local experiences and I would love to know more about your tribes. And he said, see, I'm from the Monpa tribe. And he pointed to the guy sitting next to him, and he said, he's also from the Monpa tribe, but I can't understand his dialect and he can't understand mine. I mean, they are from the same tribe, but they have 2 different dialects, which was such a huge thing for me. I was like, wow, now this place is worth coming back to, because this is India again. This is again that part of our country that we know so little, nothing about. The largest state in the Northeast, the least populated state, bad infrastructure, but so much of culture, so much of, and it's worth going and visiting. So I think that Bhutan actually helped me see a lot of things in tourism. Also, like I said, gave me the ethos of the tourism policy that I have adopted, which is high value, low volume. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so you got it from your parents, actually.
Yeah, I can blame them for it.
Somewhere it's got to start. Good.
Yeah,
I'm a very avid traveler. I have traveled. Okay. I've been traveling a lot, and I'm not very old. I'm just 72 years.
Oh, lovely.
72 years of age now. But this year also I traveled to South America.
Okay.
When I travel, I generally travel alone or someone with me once in a while. When I travel alone, generally what I try to do is get friendly with the person. When I go to places like this, get friendly with the person of that place and then go around that place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, suppose I'm sitting and having a drink in a pub or a coffee in the thing. I get friendly with the person, and then I tell him, okay, where are you from? You're from this place. Hey, will you take me around? So I sit down and have a little more snacks and I pay for it. And then probably I go around with him and go and see that place. So when I do my traveling, and if I go to a place which is, more towards nature than city itself, then I pick up a person from that place and to see that place around.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the best way to get the absolutely local experience, because there's no one better than the local to take you around.
That way, I've seen wonderful places in India which I can guarantee that plenty of people haven't seen.
Okay.
Most people in India haven't seen. Very small things, small villages, small places. Like in Madhya Pradesh, I forget the name of the village. There's a place where the sunlight does not come down to that place for more than, I think, 2-3 hours a day, or even for that much time.
Oh, wow.
The village is so deep in a ravine.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Sunlight doesn't reach over there.
Right.
So many places we have, but while traveling, this is what I try to do.
Right.
Local chap, get friendly with them, then go around with them, and then come out of that place.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing your inputs with me. Thank you. I think yes. How do you plan destinations for group tours? So Deepti, we market very few destinations, like I said, based on my own personal travels, and it's all there on the website, and we just do group tours there. So like I have a lot of guests who ask me like, oh, we went to this place with you, now we want to go to another place. Will you do Bali for us, or will you do Thailand, or even Goa for that matter, or places like that? And I always say that, these places are so easy to do. All the information is available on the internet. Why do you need me? That kind of thing. So I'm very selective about the places I market, but it's like whatever I do, I want to do it really well and give the best possible service. Again, like I said, the challenge before me is scalability, because this business model means that it's restricted a little bit. There's only so much I can do being a solo entrepreneur. But I'm still working on that. Let's see if I can put some ideas into motion next year. But our group tours, all our tours, whether it's individual, group, or families, anything, they're all restricted to the destinations we market, which could even be like in Himachal Pradesh. I don't do Shimla, Kullu, Manali. I do, the Tirthan Valley side, or I do the other side, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So Deepti is actually based in Sri Lanka, and we have Mr. Paul, who is based in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and
lovely.
Some participants from Pune also. I think Nirja is from Pune, and Brigadier Carr also. I'm not sure, but quite a few from Pune.
Yeah. So this is for Deepti. I mean, I've had Sri Lanka on my mind for a while. So I will come to Sri Lanka, and then I will start marketing Sri Lanka. I need to figure it out. Also, what's happened is because we've spoiled our customers by giving them the kind of services that we have. And now the bar has been set so high that there's no way I can bring it down. I can only raise it higher and higher. So I just do not market destinations that I cannot, I can't tell them, Acha, go to this street and go to that cafe. I can't. So I will not market such places. But Sri Lanka has been on my wish list. It was supposed to happen this year. So, like I said, this year is an aberration. I'm canceling it, and I'm moving to next year. So that's that.
Ritu, even I have friends in Sri Lanka, and I were to visit Sri Lanka this November, but it got cancelled.
I know.
So if you ever plan to go to Sri Lanka, please let me know. I would like to
Oh yeah, absolutely. We can do it together. We can just do like a recce together kind of thing. I'm open to that. I've done that with some people, so I'm open to that completely.
Also, you because you were mentioning Arunachal Pradesh and tribes and tribal life and culture. So there's an Pune-based organization which is called Adivasi Lives Matter. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
So it is run by someone called Isha Chitnish. She is a content creator and a group of people. So what they do is they promote tribal life of Arunachal Pradesh, of Andaman Islands, of Jharkhand,
Okay.
and
Oh,
places like
lovely.
that,
Okay.
Chhattisgarh, and places like that. So
Mm-hmm.
they promote tourism to these places. They promote their culture, their livelihood. Even they take care of their education and something like that. So because you are also into something and your area of interest also lies in something like that, it would be great if you.
I would love to connect with them. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
and
I
because
would
they are
love.
Pune based, again it
Yeah,
will
yeah,
be much
yeah.
more easier. So I recently got in touch with them, and they said that
Okay.
if not for anything, you can also help us on a content basis if you want to
Oh,
curate
okay.
content for us and something like
Okay.
that. Yeah. So it's called
Sounds great.
Adivasi Lives Matter.
Lives matter. I've noted it down. I know
Yeah.
Isha Chitnis. I've noted it down.
Touchiness. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I will look her up and I will get in touch with them.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you for the input.
Yes. Yes. Thanks.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining in.
Yeah, Ritu, can you also tell us about the trip that you are organizing to Uttarakhand in January 2021?
So Uttarakhand, actually in Uttarakhand, I am only currently organizing treks, and I'm going to a trek called Har Ki Dun. And it's been on the cards for a while. I was supposed to do it in the summer. Even winter is a good time to do it. And the highest point is about 4,200 meters above sea level. It's a 6 night, 7 day trek. So I'm hoping to make it in January mid sometime, post 17th. So again, Uttarakhand treks. We've partnered with a very reliable guy. He is an Uttarakhandi. Basically, he's from Dehradun, and he's been in business for 20 years. So that's another thing that we do in the company. I don't have vendors. I deal with partners. Because what happens is when I'm in a profit sharing partnership with them, they are as committed to my client as if it was their own, because I'm sharing my profit with them. And that also works well because then we're not eating into each other's markets. The problem in the travel industry is that the margins are so low and it is so competitive that early on I realized that I cannot do what is called the B2B, that is business to business. I cannot deal with other companies. And most travel companies across the world, in fact, do B2B because the world is their stage, right? So they're selling holidays across the world and nobody can travel that much. So everyone's doing B2B. But in this COVID scenario, I realized when I went to Arunachal Pradesh and I was in the company of these stalwarts from the travel industry that I have a treasure which they don't. And which is not that they are more experienced than me, but I have B2C. I have my client database, which is gold at this time. And they don't, because they do only B2B. They only sell holidays to other companies. They do not deal with clients directly. And that is a big problem in this day and age because the client wants to deal with the person directly. They want more. They want more information. They want more, freebies, or it could even be, more services, and you cannot, it's not always price. It's not always money. And that is something these people are now realizing. The pandemic has made them realize that they need to now. So, one company, in fact, he told me that he's spending some 4-5 lakh rupees a month on social media for his company because he's now realizing the potential of it. And he says, I'm tech impaired. I don't know how to do it. So I think that these spaces are spaces where we score as a startup because we have an understanding of social media in a way, and we've worked in that field for a bit. Then this is where old companies are losing out. But the pandemic is also more like survival of the fittest. So it's been unfortunate. A lot of companies have gone out of business, but then things have come to a stage where either you disrupt and reinvent, or you become a non-entity. It's unfortunate, but that's what the pandemic has done to, especially to our business. So I think that's something that has been a big learning for me.
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. And I think things can only get better from here. And
I hope so. Fingers crossed. Yes. So I'm sorry, you asked about Uttarakhand and I went somewhere else. That's what it always happens with me. I start somewhere and I end somewhere. So yeah, Uttarakhand, hopefully it should happen. Let's see.
You're a traveler.
Yeah, I'm constantly on the move. Yeah, so that's what it is.
And I do hope the participants will connect with you. Like Nupur Pradhan, I forgot, she's also from Pune. So this seems to be a Pune special today. And
yeah, surprisingly, huh? Surprisingly.
Great session.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great session.
Thank you.
And like, we enjoyed listening to you, and
great.
We wish
I'm
you
glad.
all the best with your company and with your
Thank
future
you.
endeavors. And I hope we will remain connected and take some trips
Of
together.
course. Yeah, it will be my pleasure. It will be my pleasure entirely.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. for our Sunday webinar. And just wanted, before we leave, I want to tell you about our next travel series session, which will be on 9th of January 2021 with Mr. Indranil Kar, who is a professional mountaineer and photographer. And he has been in this field for more than 25 years. So I would like all the participants who are present today to attend that session also. And that's all for now. Have a nice day. See you tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.